Well, this is Manish Patel from the EII Capital Group. Today is November 22, 2010. This is a weekly Ichimoku analysis for the global markets where we'll cover everything in the US to Europe, from France to Germany to UK to Asia. We'll go through China, Hong Kong, India, and Australia. If you have any other markets you'd like to see in the future, please let us know, and we'll see if we could provide them. This is a normal disclaimer. This is for educational use only. All charts are in Thinkorswim, TradeStation, or FreeStockCharts.com. Okay. Here are my contact details. If you have any questions, please let us know. The heat map will start being available probably in about a week or two. Just so please be patient with us. Also, you can follow us on Twitter at Ichimoku Trading. Okay, so let's go and start looking at the U.S. markets first, as we normally do, and let's go look at the, let's start off with the NASDAQ, because we've been bullish NASDAQ for the last couple of weeks and bearish S&P 500. Let's see how that's going. So if you look at the weekly time frame, we basically got very close to the Tinkinson. Not quite there, but we got there last week, and basically we bounced off that guy. And today, you look and see it looks like we're a little higher than the close from yesterday. Okay, so that's kind of key to interesting. There's nothing here to trade at all. If you're not bullish already, don't start getting in now at the top. You gotta wait for a major pullback before you can get in. If you're in the position, then keep your stops tight and be patient. Okay, but as we talked about it, this does look like it's going to go higher until the end of the year at least, but only time will tell. Okay, that's the NASDAQ. Let's go look at the daily on the NASDAQ, and then we'll come around and look at the weekly. Okay, if you look at the NASDAQ on the daily, if you look at it, Tinkinson pointing down, that's because of the gap and everything. So there's some equalization that has to happen here. Okay, now once it's done the equalization, the question is what's going to do. So this key level here, let's just put it here at 21.21, is kind of key level there to see exactly what's going to happen. And then here on this side, we really need to wait and see what happens here on the 21.83 level. So those are two levels that we need to see exactly what's going to happen on NASDAQ before we can initiate any other positions on this. Okay. Now remember, this is the weekly time frame for the NASDAQ. Let's go look at the ES, which is the S&P 500. If you look at the S&P 500, everything's starting to look strong. If you look here, we did close below the close from last week, so that's interesting. But the chart looks very, very similar to the NASDAQ finally. So the ES has caught up, but this still looks very, very good. Notice the ES did touch the Tinkinson, whereas the NASDAQ didn't. So that tells you that the NASDAQ is still very little strong compared to the ES. Okay, so be patient and wait there. Okay, and the last one is the Dow futures. If you look at the Dow futures, it looks a little like the ES now. The Dow futures was ahead of the ES, but now look at it. It's actually kind of almost the same as the ES now. So definitely, if you're looking at pairs trading, you kind of want to hedge and don't want to take too much risk. I would definitely go long the NASDAQ index and then maybe short it with either the Dow or the S&P 500. So whichever one you want to prefer, you could short it and use it as a hedge and use that moving forward. Okay, but excuse me, both does look very, very strong due to the Chicago on the weekly time frame because it's in open space and just past the last pivot. So that's very interesting to see. If you look at the dailies kind of look like chop and need some upward movement to confirm going long. Okay, so we just got to wait and see. So now let's go look at our global markets. Let me go find our global markets. There they are. Okay. Now I'm going to... Oh, you can't see this that much. So we're going to go around to all the different market indexes around the world. We've got a couple of requests this week, so I'm glad you guys are coming back with feedback, and we're going to do that. So let's go first start off with Sydney. We're going to jump around a couple of places, but let's go first start off with Sydney. This is the weekly time frame. If you look at the weekly time frame here, let's shrink enlarge this right now. We're basically consolidating. One thing different between Australia and the U.S. markets is, look, we're actually below the Tinkinson on the weekly time frame. So Australia looks a little weak, just a little weak compared to the U.S. markets. However, it's still very, very strong. It's still bullish, so you can't really say anything about it, but it's still interesting to see exactly what's going on there. Okay, let's go look at Frankfurt. Actually, let's just go to finish off with Asia. If you look at Asia, Hong Kong now has finally gone and closed Actually, it closed a little above the Tinkinson last week. This week, we're started off below the Tinkinson. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how we end up. But it has a possibility of bouncing off the Tinkinson just like the U.S. markets have. Let's go to China, Japan. The Nikkei. And just like before, this thing's still in a state of confusion. If you look at the long-term picture, this thing's just consolidating. However, it is now setting up to be a bullish momentum. It needs a little pullback and then a move. If it could sit there and break this level here of 10,000 about 267, then there has a possibility of the Nikkei actually moving into a bullish momentum finally, and sits there and possibly can get to the top of the range over here and then possibly break out. But it's going to need that huge push up for it to happen. Okay, so let's go there. Let's go China. If you look at the Chinese market, let's enlarge this. Notice all the charts almost look the same. Interesting, isn't it? Okay, if you look at the Chinese market here, and we'll bring this out here. If you look at the Chinese market, we're below the Tinkinson. We closed last week below the Tinkinson. We started off this week below the Tinkinson. So we got to wait and see exactly what happens. However, notice this future cloud is being bearish. Now it looks like it's trying to set up bullish. So upward momentum will sit there and pop this thing out. However, notice the Shikao is in this cloud. So really, there's not going to be a huge push to the trend side, to the top side, until at least you can break 31.25 on the Shanghai index. Okay, so this one looks very weak compared to the other global markets. And then if you go lastly to the Indian market, you could see that we drastically went below the Tinkinson, which is the pullback we've been waiting for, and we finally got to that level close enough to what we were looking for at 19,550. So that was one midterm level. We're kind of hoping it would get below 1900, but it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens here. Remember, it's between the Tinkinson and Cajunson, so it's in the boundary of a range, and only time will tell exactly what's going to happen there. Okay, so now let's go to the FTSE. Let's go to Frankfurt, to Germany. You could see that price is far away from the Tinkinson, so this is actually very, very strong, even more than the U.S. markets right now. However, I don't like the distance between the price and the Tinkinson at all. So there definitely needs a correction there and equalize before it can move over. So Frankfurt does have the possibility of a major correction coming up, or not a major, but a minor correction coming up soon. If you look at the FTSE is below the Tinkinson and just pretty much consolidating now. It's got to sit there and make an upward movement for a trend to start occurring. Okay, and then if we lastly, let's go look at the Paris. Paris is still stronger than the FTSE in London, but it's weak compared to Germany. All of them, again, the markets are global, are bullish. And if you could see that this is approaching the Tinkinson, but not quite there yet. And lastly, let's come all the way back to South America. Let's go look at Brazilian market. If you look at the Brazilian market, just like every global market, either they're right at the Tinkinson or a little below the Tinkinson, the same scenario. So if you look, all the global markets are showing almost the same chart patterns where they're all bullish, and they're in a minor correction phase right now. That minor could either become a major or a medium correction, or it can sit there and possibly start a new trend coming up soon. However, you need a movement on those markets in order for something, the charts to tell us something. But right now, we don't have that movement at all.